Does anybody here want to speak about the mandatory results? So the other comparison study, which wasn't comparing an off-label versus on-label treatment, was the VIEW studies. And Jeff, why don't you tell us about the VIEW studies, both first the one-year results and then go into the second year and kind of show us what the difference was between the first year and second year.
So the VIEW study compared
what are you hiding?
three different doses, or three different dosing regimens for aflibercept. It was 2 milligrams monthly and 0.5 milligrams monthly, and then there was a 2 milligrams with a loading phase, and then every 8 weeks. And the control arm in that study was ranibizumab 0.5 milligrams monthly. It was a very large study. VIEW 1 and VIEW 2 combined was over 2,400 patients, so 600 patients in each arm. The first year was the regimen that I described there, and the data, which has been out now for eons.
4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years. The data showed that essentially all 4 of these groups were comparable. All 4 were very effective at stabilizing patients and achieving 3-line gainers. In particular, the finding that was most interesting to us was not simply that the 2 milligrams of aflibercept and the 0.5 milligrams ranibizumab were comparable, but that the 2 milligrams dosed every 8 weeks after the loading phase was comparable. So it was encouraging to us that we may have a treatment option that if we want to stay regular on label, as we talk about, as opposed to monthly, we could do it less frequently. The second year of the study, which was recently released at several meetings, was
It was a year and a half ago.
The paper's already out on that second year, isn't it?
Second year's right.
Well, the first author can attest to that. The regimen there was that patients were treated in what's called a capped PRN, and what that means is they were followed monthly and treated based on similar criteria as the other studies we've discussed, but there was a mandatory quarterly dosing. And so patients wouldn't go more than 3 months without a treatment. And the data there showed that, again, the 4 arms largely maintained the gains that they had. There was some fall off, which ranged from about 0.8 to 1.7 letters, depending on the different groups. What was interesting is that the number of injections were essentially the same until you got to the patients who received the most injections. And when you got to the patients who received the most injections, there was an advantage to the patients treated with aflibercept, meaning patients who got 6 or more injections were, if you needed 6 or more, that was more likely in the ranibizumab treated patients than in the aflibercept treated patients.
So Dave, wake up.
Jeff always puts me to sleep.
It didn't appear to have this longer biologic activity that we've been postulating with EYLEA. Is this a correct conclusion from the VIEW 2, or what do you think?
So when the VIEW 1-2 studies were designed, what we didn't want was a true PRN where we knew vision would get lost. And so this capped PRN sounds good to keep your patients at least a floor by which they couldn't go through. It also makes a minimum number of injections. So everybody got a 3 minimum. The average number of injections was 4.1 and 4.2. So if you look at those numbers, it looks like, boy, that's not much difference. It's only when you look, like Jeff was alluding to, the patients that needed almost every month, was there a big difference in the percentages of which patients needed less shots. And if you look at the anatomic data, it also appears that aflibercept dries out more retinas. And how much this correlates with vision in a short period of time may not be much, but I think over time, yes, 4.6 and 4.2.
You stand corrected.
4.2.
You stand corrected.
4.1. Oh, for the aflibercept ones.
Yeah.
But ranibizumab was
Ranibizumab was
4.
We can
4.6.
change the numbers. We'll be good.
Yeah,
We'll make you sound smart.
that's hard to do some days. And so it's hard to tell in the confounds of this study. The fact that if you look at the odds ratio of being dry, of the monthly Lucentis patients versus the 3 doses and then every 8 weeks, it was really reassuring that your odds ratio of being dry was better if you got the Q8 than monthly Lucentis. And I think that's the strongest data in the whole set. And this is at 1 year that aflibercept Q8 is keeping patients seemingly drier than ranibizumab.
So,
When's that data going to come out, Jeff?
Presenting it again here.
Again? Okay, just let me.